Welcome back to our series, Confidence of Our Deliverance. Couldn't remember it. Confidence of Our Deliverance. I want to get into something called Wrath to the Uttermost. It'll be dealing with the last 2.5 years of this tribulation period. So bear with what I have to share here. Sitting and viewing my own series on Confidence of Deliverance on YouTube to get some idea of what the Lord wants to share to continue this series, something stood out that I will now share with you. It's called Wrath to the Uttermost. It's mentioned in 1 Thessalonians 2:16, forbidding us to speak to the Gentiles that they might be saved, to fill up their sins always, for the wrath is upon them to the uttermost. Paul, in this chapter, is speaking to the Gentile converts who were persecuted by others that also were Gentiles, just as Jewish Christian converts were being persecuted by their own countrymen, Jewish. This gospel that Paul preached and that these Jews and Gentiles were receiving gained hatred from all, Jew and Gentile, especially the Jews, who hated not only the Jewish convert but also the Gentile convert, to the point they were forbidding Paul to even speak to them. In this, you can see that the gospel Paul was preaching fits what I've been saying over and over again, that what the apostles and Jesus himself were offering was a new being, a new sense of reality, and a new sense of power. It wouldn't be of any race, culture, creed, or gender. It gave a deeper meaning to what Paul called a new creation, giving it the ring of being beyond our limited ideas of being. We might have a physical shape that a human body might have, yet what we have known of men after the flesh, meaning more than just the skin, and also meaning the opinions and ideas of our ideas, reaches deeper than we could ever envision. With that said, you might ask, as I am asking at this moment to the Lord, what has this to do with the wrath to the uttermost? So, Lord, I had to ask him at the time, what connection does this have with this? Here's the response I got. The wrath to the uttermost is the last 3.5 years of the 7-year tribulation period. That's the uttermost. You do not want to be here for this. All those in this last half of the tribulation period are under God's wrath, which I brought out in my last video. For these, there remains no more sacrifice. If you haven't come to see your salvation and deliverance from God's wrath as something that God had accomplished before the foundations of the world, and thus would have been among those delivered alive, if you accepted that, you will have to enter into the first 3.5 years of this 7-year tribulation. And it will take to the uttermost of God's love, hear that? To the uttermost of God's love to reach you, to deliver you, using the 7 seals, judgments, which was intended for this world. Use it to wean you from that which the Holy Spirit would have done if he had not been asleep to what he was attempting to do, to prepare you for what God had offered before the foundations of the world. New kingdom, a place prepared. The Holy Spirit will let this happen to finish his work. What would require your physical dying to that which you are hanging on to, and you will lose this life to gain that life. Once this final phase of the Holy Spirit's task is finished, to conform all these to this image God had of us, his task is done, and the great tribulation period begins. All those in this last 3.5 years will never be delivered. They have recreated the fallen nature of Adam that he once had, and there is no sacrifice for them. The only reason that any of these live through this latter part of this tribulation period is because of God's promise to Noah to never again destroy all flesh. These that have this fallen nature enter into the 1,000-year reign of Christ as the goat nations, separated from the sheep nations. The connection you couldn't see. Now the Lord is saying this to me. Now, the connection you couldn't see in the opening paragraph in this article should now be seen by you. Do you see it? Is my response. I think I see it now. Wrath to the uttermost is for those who end up rejecting all, whether they're Jewish or Gentile. Get that sense? I'm still missing something. And I was. Here's what else I got. You're missing something. Focus on the words, fill up their sins always. In this statement lies your answer. Read Wuest's Greek translation of this, with the result that they fill up the measure of their sins always. This first 3.5 years is the final act of this world that fills up the cup of God's wrath. Only he that lets until he's taken out of the way. With what this is saying is that this final deliverance, this final act of the Holy Spirit of delivering those left behind, finishes his task, and the cup is full. And the wrath of God comes on Jew and Gentile, the whole world. The Jewish remnant is protected. The 5 unwise virgins get the needed oil and are delivered through their death and placed under the altar of this. There is no one else to deliver. The Holy Spirit then steps aside, his task finished. Then the outpouring of God's wrath to the uttermost begins. Let me continue my reading now. When you start seeing this new world religion coming against Christian and Jews, as you're starting to see, you will know that soon this first 3.5 years of this 7-year tribulation will start, consummating with the great tribulation, with all that you've been told unfolding. And here's some final words to this video. He shared something with me, which will probably have to come out a little more later. He says there, your idea of my wrath are as diverse as your ideas of the new being. There is wrath, and then there is wrath to the uttermost. My wrath to the uttermost is kindled when humanity seeks to hold on to or seeks to change the image of man to something not originally intended by me. The world is on the edge of setting my anger ablaze in what they're doing through their seeking to create the era of what they have called the age of post-man, the age of their changing the image of God and man to an image they are creating. My first level of wrath to correct this will last 3.5 years. That's the first 3.5 years, that's 7 years. It will be a time of drawing out those who were created in my image, those asleep to what they have. They will soon see those who have embraced this image I have originally intended, who had allowed this renewal to occur day by day, thus being made fit for the new existence. These will leave alive. I meant by this, really alive, so much alive that the new swallows up the old image in a flash, in a twinkle of an eye. They will see changed to the uttermost. These, who you call left behind, will have to be willing to physically allow the death of this body go to gain that which they saw changed to the uttermost of those leaving alive. If unwilling to allow this, they would join those who will come under my wrath to the uttermost. Sins, acts done independent from my original intentions, have filled up their cup to the uttermost. I mean, that's scary stuff, but not when we have the confidence of our deliverance. So I hope you got something out of this. View these other videos and put the pieces together. You will be delivered. God bless you.